Do another conference preview right now with the SEC, the best conference in America. Dalton, just means more in the SEC. So we previewed all the teams in the SEC already. Check them all out if you want to learn about each individual team. But right now what we're going to do is give our SEC Offensive Player of the Year, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, SEC Coach of the Year, the sleeper team in the SEC, our SEC Championship Game prediction, and how many playoff teams the SEC sends to the 12-team college football playoff this year as well. Dalton, who is your SEC Offensive Player of the Year, though?
I think it's an easy pick. There was one or two other guys I thought about for a moment, but I have to go with my pick for the Heisman Trophy. I think the best quarterback in the country, and that's Carson Beck. Look, he's the quarterback on what I think is the best team in the country. He's got a super clean passing profile. He was 5th in overall grade last year among FBS quarterbacks. I think he's in for a monster season. I know Georgia doesn't necessarily have that like Luther Burden sort of number one receiver, but they've got a ton of weapons. They added Trevor Etienne in the run game to help out, but Beck's profile is just so clean, and I think he's a really, really safe pick for this award.
I'm with you, man. I also have Carson Beck winning this award. He was my runner-up for the Heisman Trophy when I decided. I decided on Dylan Gabriel, ultimately the quarterback for Oregon, but Carson Beck was right there as well. I'm with you. I think he's the best quarterback right now in college football. Going to put up huge numbers this year. There's really no earthly way I think Carson Beck has a bad year this year, right? He's just so clean overall in his game. I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I think he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC. What about Defensive Player of the Year, Dalton? Who is winning DPOY for SEC?
There's some really fun candidates out there. There's James Pierce Jr., there's Deion Walker, there's Harold Perkins, but I'm going to stay with the Georgia Bulldogs, and I'm going to go with one of the best safeties in the country, Malachi Starks. Wow. I think, look, he had a huge jump as a sophomore last year. I think he could have another huge jump as a junior this year. One of the most fundamentally sound players in the country. Started getting more ball production last year. I think Starks is in for a big year. He's the best defensive player on the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, I don't hate that, man. You picked Caleb Downs to your Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year as well, another safety, and I think those two are pretty clearly the top two safeties in college football, so I kind of love that pick. I'm going with one of the guys you mentioned, though. That is James Pierce Jr., the edge defender from Tennessee. I actually had him winning the Bednarik and Nagurski Trophy as the best defensive player in college football as well, so I have to pick him here for this. But I think James Pierce Jr., athletic player, man, super freak athlete, best pass rusher in the country. He's only just getting started, right? There's so many ways he can get better as well, and he's still the best pass rusher in the country. So it's a very, very scary thought for opposing offenses. But yeah, James Pierce Jr., man, he's a chance to be a game wrecker for the Volunteers next year, and I think he's going to put up a lot of sacks, a lot of pressures, and like I said, it could be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft and is the best pass rusher in college football, in my opinion. So he's my Defensive Player of the Year. What about Coach of the Year, Dalton? Who are you going for the SEC Coach of the Year?
I had to go with my guy, Max. Look, he's a Florida Atlantic legend. He's turning himself into an Ole Miss legend, and that's Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive play callers in the country, coming off of one of the best seasons in Ole Miss history, and I think they're going to improve upon that. We both see them as a potential top 5 team in the country. I think the Rebels are in for a really, really good season. They just have to get over the hurdle of beating Georgia, beating Alabama, beating the premier teams on their schedule. But with a 12-team playoff, I fully expect them to make it one way or the other, and Kiffin's a huge reason for that. I'm taking Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, man. Right now, they're number 6 in the preseason AP poll. That is their highest preseason ranking since 1970. So I think Lane Kiffin, if he does finish as a top 5 team in the country, man, I'm with you. And I think Ole Miss is going to be a playoff team. I'm going to spoil that right now. I think that he's going to get a lot of credit. And listen, they had the program record 11 wins last year. I think they could be around that this year, man. I really do, if not better, honestly. So I think it's a team that's going to make the college football playoff. I think it's a top 5 team in the country. And yeah, I'm with you. I think Lane Kiffin ultimately wins Coach of the Year. What about the sleeper team in the SEC, Dalton? Who's the team that we should be looking out for a little bit more than some people might indicate for us?
I think a team with an outside playoff shot based on just their schedule, actually, I think Tennessee is a team to watch because I look at their schedule and there's at least 9 games that I think they're pretty clearly favored in. And then you've got 3 tough games, one on a neutral site against NC State, and then they play Alabama at home, and then I believe at Georgia. If they pull off 2 out of those 3 wins, let's say they beat NC State and they beat Alabama, they're going to be in serious. If they're 11-1 on an SEC schedule, no matter what it is, they're going to be in prime position for a playoff spot. And if Nico Iamaleava has that Heisman potential that some people think he does have, especially in that offense, I think that's a sleeper based on their schedule. If they can win a couple of big games, Tennessee could really make some noise in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm going with a team that's going to be unranked to start the year at least. That is the Kentucky Wildcats. I think they're a little bit of a sleeper team as well. they have a really, really good defense, man. They have stars at all three levels of that defense, whether it be Deion Walker, that defensive line. You got Jamin Dumas-Johnson at linebacker. You got Maxwell Hairston at corner, a really good secondary outside of that as well, too. A great linebacker unit. Yeah, I really think Kentucky would be really good. And if Brock Vandagriff is the 5-star quarterback that he was a few years ago coming out of high school, this is a dangerous team, man. A really dangerous team. He's got a really good receiving core at Tennessee as well. And like I said, man, if Brock Vandagriff is what he was coming out of high school, what he was thought to be coming out of high school, I think they could really be a really good team coming in. And, Chip Trayanum, a new running back, too, out of Kentucky, out of Ohio State, if he is a really good player, too, like this Kentucky offense can match the defense a little bit. They could surprise a lot of people next year. So right now, not a ranked team entering the year, but that defense is loaded, and they have some potential on that offense as well if Brock Vandagriff can reach the ceiling. So Kentucky is my sleeper team in the SEC. What is your SEC championship game prediction, Dalton? Who is going to make it to the title game and who ultimately is going to win the SEC title?
So the obvious one to make it is Georgia. It's the second team that I had issues with because when I broke down all the schedules and I went through who I think is going to win every game, which of course will only be about half right at the end of it, how college football is. But I ended up with a 4-way tie for second place. So I wasn't going to go through all the tiebreakers and figure out all the math behind it. I'm just going to take the second best team. That's Ole Miss. I think Georgia's going to beat Ole Miss in a rematch in the SEC title game. Ole Miss is really, really good, but I think the Georgia revenge tour is on this year after losing to Alabama last year. Still had a playoff argument last year even after that loss, and I think they're going to be coming into this season really, really angry, and they're still really, really talented with the best quarterback in the country. Give me the Bulldogs over the Rebels for the SEC title.
Just like the Big Ten, man, we have the same exact title game, the same exact result as well. Georgia over Ole Miss. I'm with you. I also, when I was doing this, I predicted a lot of the schedules, and I think I also had like a 4-way tie for second place. So I really, like you, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go with the team. I think it's the second best team in the conference. That is the Ole Miss Rebels. The best offense probably in the SEC, and a really, really improved defense too. Prince Iman Mielin coming in, Walter Nolan coming in, and a lot of other transfers on that side of the ball as well. But Georgia's still Georgia, man. They're still our number one team in the country heading into the year. Best coach in the country in Kirby Smart. Best quarterback in the country in Carson Beck. Arguably the best roster in college football as well. Georgia is winning the SEC, in my opinion, this year. So I got Georgia over Ole Miss, just like you, in the title game. All right, Dalton, how many playoff teams does the SEC get in the new 12-team playoff?
I've got them with 4. I think 5 feels a little bit much when you talk about some of the other teams, especially in the Big Ten. I've got 4, and it was really hard to pick which 4 when you really broke it down. One of the key elements with having conferences now that are so big right now, you've got 16, 18-team conferences. The SEC, they're only playing 8 conference games. So you have a lot of teams that don't play each other, that can't prove it head-to-head, and you're really basing things off of strength of schedule or out of conference and things like that. It's a really tough decision as to which 4 that I went with, but I'm going with 4.
I actually went with 5. I did. I think I was breaking it down. I just trust a lot more SEC teams to win 10 games than I do for any other conference. So yeah, it maybe at the end of the day, like it might not end up being 5, but I'm more trying to get as many right as I can in this college football playoff prediction. So that's why I'm kind of predicting more SEC teams. So it might not ultimately be 5 in the SEC at the end of the day, but I just trusted those 5 in the SEC that I picked more than, say, the other conferences. Like the other contenders I had, I was like, man, I could see where this goes wrong for them. In the SEC, the 5 that I picked to make it, I was like, I really think they're going to be a good team no matter what this year. So that's why I'm going with 5 as of right now. So those are our SEC predictions. As you can see, Georgia over Ole Miss in the title game for both of us. Carson Beck, Defensive Player of the Year for both of us. Dalton with Malachi Starks at Defensive Player of the Year. I went with James Pierce Jr. Both had Lane Kiffin as our Coach of the Year. I had Kentucky as my sleeper team. Dalton had Tennessee as a sleeper team. And I have 5 teams making the 12-team college football playoff out of the SEC, while Dalton has 4 of them. But keep an eye out for more conference previews coming out very, very soon. And let us know in the comments below, what do you think about our SEC predictions for the 2024 season?